Hi, I'm Grape Juice. I'm going to cut to the chase. I've been playing TF2 for 12 years, 6v6 for 9 years, 6 years of which I would deem at a high level, and 3 years of which against the best in the world. I've been to 7 in-person LAN tournaments, as well as coached teams of various skill levels that have won their respective RGL divisions. All of that humble bragging aside, I love the game casually, and I've observed the landscape of casual TF2 weapon discussion for over half of my life by this point. I'm beginning the video this way to say, for all intents and purposes, I understand the ins and outs of TF2 as good as almost anyone else you can name. With all that out of the way, and a special shout out to these players for helping with the video, let's get into the real arguments for why 6v6 weapon bans across continents are the way they are. But first, it's important to mention the idea that a weapon being described as a direct upgrade is not a valid reason to ban a weapon. I'm going to illustrate this with 2 key examples. To start, the gunboats. By decreasing the amount of damage a soldier takes from rocket jumping, the soldier takes on the role of not only doing bigger, faster, flashier jumps, but more importantly, many series of smaller jumps to get into position, flank, land on opponents, distract, and escape. Rocket jumping has an insanely high skill ceiling, and even within Invite, there are soldiers who make different use of the gunboats from one another. This means that despite being absolutely the best soldier secondary in a 6's context, it brings only good things to the table in terms of game speed, punishing opponents, and creating opportunities for both self and teammates. Secondly, the crossbow. The crossbow actively engages the medic in teamfights with large burst healing, giving medic more impact over the flow of a fight, as well as a special clutch factor. Additionally, this burst healing is super impactful for the flow of pushes and transition fights, where many players need to be healed in rapid succession in order to mount a successful push. If the medic were to slowly beam each target individually, there's a high likelihood that a player advantage or uber advantage would be lost to the void, leading to less action-packed gameplay. An often over-discussed aspect of TF2's weapon balance is the ability for weapons to kill things, especially a medic. What is vastly under-discussed is how weapons can disrupt game flow and create openings and or snowball advantages. TF2 isn't a game about killing people, it's a game about creating advantages to win control of the objective. I would argue that dead opponents are the single biggest advantage you can have in 6's, but this is widely understood by everyone in the server. You typically have to put in work to be able to kill a player in a 6's match. This shifts the goalposts, especially at a high level, and the questions you ask as a team become, did we need to kill the flank, or did we just need to get them off of the door? Did we need to kill their entire combo, or could we have just capped the last point this whole time? What the 6's community has come to value is teamwork and mechanical skill to create these openings. Going the other way, when a team makes a mistake, it needs to be punishable. Players who make bad decisions need to live with their bad decisions. They need to put in the effort to communicate and coordinate a salvage play, or make use of their mechanics to bail them out. When equipping one item shifts the goalposts, the game flow often suffers significantly. And finally, one last note before we begin. These weapons don't exist in a vacuum, and players using these weapons aren't isolated to a 1v1. The world keeps turning, and the game is always in motion. Ignoring these unlocks, or waiting their effects out is very frequently not the solution to countering them, and I'll bring this up as we go along. Finally, with all that out of the way, let's actually begin discussing the real reasons why weapons are banned. The extremely high burst damage of the soda popper that some players point out is not a very large detractor of the soda popper. The difference is actually negligible or worse over the course of a team fight. What makes this weapon so potent is the fact that it only takes about 350 damage from any of Scout's weapons to build the height meter, which unlocks the potential for Scout to 6-tuple jump. This makes an already nimble class even more threatening, despite the same or less DPS over an extended period of time. The ability for Scout to change direction 5 times is lethal and highly offsets any negative DPS impact when the Scout isn't burst firing. Any strategy revolving around just don't shoot the Scout or just wait out the hype is null when you realize that the world keeps turning in a teamfight. Just because you don't shoot the Scout doesn't mean they can't shoot you. Just because the Scout has the height meter doesn't mean they need to use it instantly, they can just save it until it actually becomes useful to them. Just because they have 6 jumps doesn't mean they need to spam all 6 back to back to back. Many of the best Scout players understand this very well already, where not using your double jump in a fight is potentially even more deceptive than using it. All in all, the soda popper creates an unbalanced dynamic in teamfights, where the potential for a Scout to double as a distraction and still potentially deal insane damage in rapid succession is heightened, and this is why it's banned in 6's. If a medic tanks a critical scout, then he has 185 and can dance mid-range and deal no damage fall-off mini-crits. There's a perfect range that all high-level scout players are aware of, where you can very easily react to projectiles to dodge them and deal the damage back to the projectile class shooting at you. So eating that damage is very, very low risk, and any damage dealt by hit scan classes is very easily healed away by the medic. Additionally, similar to what I mentioned with the soda popper's hype mechanic, the scout doesn't need to be constantly using the criticola. It is far more optimal for the scout to pace themselves at a mid to long range and then pop the cola when the teamfight has developed, laying waste to his opponents, or simply not use a criticola, as even a scout without a pistol for cleanup is unbelievably powerful. The biggest thing about the bonk is that it completely eliminates a catch zone of sorts when making behind plays. It is pretty easy to deny a scout between the doorway where they are in front and the doorway where they are behind. Think about upper IT on process, or big door baby door on gully wash. In order to get behind in a standard situation, a pretty significant amount of pressure needs to be exerted in order to get a scout through these areas successfully. The bonk bypasses this entirely. Pop the bonk, get behind, wait for it to run out, and then you can fight anyone who tries to chase you. Pop the bonk, body block spam for a guy, they get behind, you run away. Be behind, pop the bonk, run away, and meet your teammates at the exit. Shooting the player while they're bonked is a waste of ammo almost always, since that ammo could be used on enemy players who are trying to pressure, allowing a window for the scout's teammates to also make plays, since you aren't there to stop them. Turning to fight that player, or even just sitting at a doorway looking for them, pulls you out of position, allowing for even more players on the enemy team to trickle through. If players don't look back for the player behind, then they are unimpeded in shooting your team in the back. All this headache just because a scout drank some soda. In the eyes of the Sixes community, it is a no-brainer to keep this weapon banned, as it flies in the face of using mechanical skill and teamwork to create the advantage that is having a player behind the enemy team. Plus 27 HP recovery for a pistol clip is ridiculous. I really cannot understate how unbelievably mechanically talented invite scouts are. They will always get at least 15 HP on a clip, I can guarantee it. Shooting 2 pistol clips in the scrappy stages of a fight will probably net the scout between 30 to 40 HP. This could increase the scout's effective health to 150 to 210ish, depending on how overhealed they are. Even discounting this weapon in the hands of an invite scout, if we go down to a lower level where a scout might be hitting less shots, the scout's opponent is also hitting less shots. All around, it increases both DPS and survivability for the most powerful DM class in the game. The pocket pistol is busted in the eyes of most players. I'm going to combine the Rap Assassin and the Flying Guillotine for this segment. The ability for a scout to deal 100 damage over time from a distance negates the scout's entire class design that encompasses being terrible at a distance, but a glass cannon up close. People focus on a player like the medic taking this damage from range, but in reality, any player taking this damage without having to be engaged by the scout tilts the game in the scout's favor significantly. Obviously, if a medic eats that damage, they have to play more passively at risk of being killed, but let's pretend a soldier or a scout eats that damage. They might have to abandon their positioning to get a health pack or retreat behind cover for an arrow or to get beamed. Eating this spam might even deny the ability for a player to perform a simple sack play successfully.
Just don't give him anything and we're fine.
Dude.
We rip a sack like really soon here.
Yeah.
We do our default.
In Sixes, positioning is the basis for all fights, pushes, and holds. The fact that one bobble or one cleaver could cause this disruption to a player's positioning is plenty annoying on its own, but again, they have a 7.5 and 5.1 second cooldown time respectively. They can be spammed relentlessly over the course of a game, and getting hit by these projectiles isn't even really a mistake, because all it requires is being in line of sight of the scout. If you break line of sight to avoid eating the spam, you're also being denied information on the players who could bomb you or flank you at any moment. The guillotine is banned in all leagues because you don't have to give up the Boston Basher in order to use it, but in the case of the Rap Assassin, you only need one scout to run Basher most of the time, or you could alternatively build with a soldier or a demoman. In a game mode like Koth, the ability to build Uber with the Basher is highly diminished when the game mode is a constant teamfight, thus you are always building Uber at an increased rate due to natural damage. All these factors lead to a slew of super low risk but super high impact spam from a class that simply doesn't need it in order to be successful. The Cowmangler's charge shot in and of itself is brutal to get hit by, either as a direct or as a splash. So impactful in fact that being forced to play around certain charge shot angles puts your team at a severe positioning disadvantage. just dodge it is a poor argument when you realize that having to delay a push to dodge the shot buys the enemy team time to get uber or for players to arrive to the fight. And in a scenario like a mid-fight, having to reroute around a charge shot on a rollout means that there is literally one less way to play the mid-fight. If you want to talk about having a broader range of strategy, the Mangler actively inhibits this goal. On the topic of the weapon's damage penalty against sentry guns, that's pretty negligible when you understand that you have another soldier on your team, and a demo, and an uber charge, or if you're doing a sack play, you can use the charge shot to disable the sentry gun for a few seconds, giving your players a window where the sentry doesn't exist. The Mangler's infinite ammo does make it a direct upgrade over the other rocket launchers, and while ammo management is definitely an important skill, it is not even remotely close to the reason why the Cow Mangler is banned. If you're thinking about something like heavy to mid in combination with the disciplinary action, you are simply not thinking deep enough. Not only is heavy to mid fights and attacking last viable strategies without the whip on some maps, but think about what slow, defensively minded classes like heavy, NG, and sniper provide to the game, as well as what this means for game states beyond mid fights. Heavy's max 450 health requires a ton of focus fire to take out quickly, and his minigun can deny enemy players who are rocket or sticky jumping. When Heavy is shooting, his movement speed slows to a crawl, not actually making any interesting or engaging use of the movement speed buff that the whip provides. Once a Heavy is in position, he's not really going anywhere, and he creates almost a force field around the players and position he has taken. This cycle of whipping a Heavy around only for him to actually be pretty much stationary in any meaningful engagement means that he can't actually be taking ground and engaging with the enemy at the same time. This means he's only really good at engaging with the enemy, which means you will be whipping a Heavy around for the express purpose of pretty much only holding positions where you are planning for the enemy to engage with you. Hopefully you can see the staggering difference it makes when framed this way. Overall, the game would be slower, contrary to the disciplinary action making Heavy move faster. When attacking, the Sniper is a super useful class who can get a sightline on an important target and pick them off. When defending, all the Sniper really needs to do is watch a doorway and let his targets come to him. A Sniper player who is going for an aggressive peek, even with the support of their team, is at risk of being killed. If the tide turns against their team, the Sniper needs to reposition to a much safer distance in order to not be killed so easily. With the whip, the Sniper potentially avoids being caught out and dying, and they can get to a safe position and exert further pressure on an attacking team, requiring that they use the Uber at risk of getting headshot, or potentially not pushing at all if the kill on the Sniper no longer exists. When accounting for the opportunity cost of simply playing a mobile, high damage dealing class like Scout or Soldier instead, the Engineer is most effective when setting up a sentry gun to make a point much easier to defend, and teleporters to help his teammates get from forward spawns to the point being defended. I mentioned opportunity cost of playing Scout or Soldier because one of the biggest unspoken heroes of 6's gameflow is having a Scout who can capture the objective at the speed of 2 non-Scout players, while another Scout can run the medic forward to support soldiers and demos who are taking space on the next point. Reiterating what I said about the Mangler as well, on a mid-fight you would be required to run a whip soldier in order to get your team to mid faster or else suffer a crushing defeat by poor positioning. You could say something similar about the Rap Assassin where only one soldier needs to run the whip, and if both teams have a whip soldier, what's the problem? Anything that mobilizes classes that slow the game to a crawl also by definition discourage pushing into those classes. This results in gameplay that is round reset mid to last seeking, instead of rewarding teams that can defend a point and catapult off that hold into winning the round on the other side of the map. On the topic of both teams having a whip soldier, that means you can use the whip offensively and defensively. Surely this gives the weapon depth, right? Well, regardless of your class composition, is it really healthy for the game to have an uncatchable medic, for example? Remember what I said about how important it is to be able to punish your opponent's mistakes. If your scouts die, they should be further punished for it by leaving your medic out to dry with no scout speed. A soldier with the disciplinary action gives a medic an additional lifeline for when the most impactful class in the game dies carelessly. This weapon may have depth when considered in a vacuum, but it would take zero effort to suck the speed and flow out of the game entirely. The battalion's backup enables a turtle playstyle on last holds, where instead of pushing out of last when you get an advantage, you could instead wait out the clock for the round to reset and play another mid-fight instead. With both Uber and a backup, you can prevent enough damage to stall the push the enemy team is going to take with less than 30 seconds left on the round timer. It's a good tool for both holding and pushing into last, but the opportunity cost of running gunboats means it doesn't typically get used in between. Sounds like there's a big drawback to this item, so it seems balanced, right? While on defense, you can just jump back to your spawn room and swap off of it, meaning there's no commitment to it outside of holding last. This effectively negates the drawback entirely, as you're not forced to use it after you push out of last or when the round resets after a successful hold. In the wake of players like Jae-Hyun Pae and Nubby using the Market Gardener unreasonably effectively at a top level, the argument for banning it was one of, medics are put in a position where they must pop Uber in fear of being spooned, or ego hold their Uber and likely be spooned anyways without much chance to dodge or surf away. TF2's melee swings do not have to be very precise to connect, and just because you have the spoon doesn't mean you need to use it on every bomb. Thus, top players can corral a medic's movement using a rocket in midair and switch to the spoon when the opportunity arises, or critically, simply not go for the spoon if the opening isn't there. The Market Gardener does not negatively impact the soldier's gameplay very often. Only in super specific scenarios is a soldier going to swap to the escape plan for a movement speed as opposed to just rocket jumping where he needs to go. And it still creates a soldier versus medic dynamic, or honestly soldier versus anyone dynamic, that is very heavily weighed in the soldier's favor when the time is right. It's worth mentioning here though, that the Market Gardener remains unbanned in both Oz Fortress and RGL, where it has not seen much game-breaking use in the past few years. There's no actual game balance reason for the gas passer to be banned, but you can throw it through walls so it's technically bugged. A bugged weapon is an acceptable ban reason on paper, but in all honesty, TF2L should just penalize using the exploit instead. I'm going to again combine two weapons into one here with a detonator and squirt shot, and start by saying, in Invite 6's Soldier and Pyro Extraordinaire Kawa's words, the detonator is fucking busted. The detonator and squirt shot are both insanely disruptive with no risk to the pyro. What makes these weapons disruptive? Both of them having an explosive radius is actually huge for setting players on fire. The squirt shot on direct hit creates a second explosion after the fact, and the detonator can effectively be shot around corners. In an actual fight, they're pretty garbage, but the ability to spam these weapons and ruin overheals and crit heals on players is busted because the damage eventually stacks into a significant disadvantage since health packs are limited and medics can only overheal one player at a time. This is significant because when you think about it, pushes are effectively on a timer. If you have an advantage, you're going to want to use it before it disappears. One of the most frequent things a Sixes team will say after failing a push with Uberad is something like, man, we had such big Uberad, we should have just slowed down and gotten fully overhealed before we actually pushed. If you're playing against a pyro with one of these flare guns, and you do the fundamentally sound play of making sure you're super healthy before taking your push, then this pyro has the chance to take that away from you. If you continue to heal yourselves through this annoyance, it will take longer to do so, and your Uber advantage will eventually dwindle, and the enemy team may use their Uber in the middle of your push. If you don't take the time to get buffed, then you are intentionally making your push worse, all because of one weapon that the opponent chose to equip. You might be saying to yourself, well, why don't you just get buffed further out of sight? If the pyro greeds for that value, then you can probably just kill him, right? This is another situation where I must point out that unlocks do not exist in a vacuum. If you're taking a push, you have more things to clear than just a pyro defending the last point. You have to clear the path you're taking of sticky traps, and there will probably be additional rocket and pipe spam as you make your way to the doorway that you wish to push through. This is the actual part of the map where the additional flare spam shines, because it will be stacked with other early spam from the defending team. Not to mention that Pyro is already the class that stuffs Ubers and defends sentry guns, so they already want to play close to a doorway to airblast Uber players. I honestly think the only reason that both the detonator and squirt shot haven't been banned in North America and Australia is because nobody has gone out of their way to use them the way Olga did to break Europe 7 years ago. Pyro is already a super powerful class to defend last with, and many players probably just can't be bothered to peek a doorway with a flare gun out at risk of someone being close around the corner to kill them. The most hated weapon of the past couple of years has at last been banned in RGL Season 19, after being banned in ETF2L and Oz Fortress 6s for quite some time now. The lock ban boils down to the fact that it encourages the demoman to not engage with his opponents, and instead sit back at a safe distance where he can't be punished to huck footballs across the map Tom Brady style. When you compare the distances at which a demo needs to stand to hit a direct pipe with the Iron Bomber versus the lock and load, the difference is very clear. The rollers of the stock grenade launcher and the Iron Bomber are both very impactful spam options, no question. I am a huge advocate for spam-based holds where you coordinate your projectiles to slow down your opponents with splash and let the damage stack up over time. But as big of a simp I am for 4 30 damage rollers, it is undeniable the insane amount of impact a demoman can have from range with the lock and load. 30 damage is a small amount of damage that needs to be hit consistently for it to scale into something bigger. 100 damage needs to happen once and it can turn a fight 180 degrees. As annoying as it is for your medic to get hit for a 100 damage pipe across the map, any class getting hit for 100 damage at a range that cannot be punished is highly disruptive. Going back to what I said earlier about positioning being the basis of all fights, pushes, and holds, if players have to play in positions that block lock and load sightlines, that means they're also playing in positions that cut off their vision and ability to deal the damage back. It really cannot be understated the degree to which this is successful at the highest level, and really cannot be understated how difficult it is to play the game when people randomly take 100 damage from a player that can't be shot back at. The Quickie Bomb's damage ramp up when charged, combined with the faster charging and detonation speed, allow the best long-range spam class to be even better at long-range spam. On a mid-fight, a demo running Quickies has an immediate 1v1 advantage against the opposing demoman for early positioning, as well as much stronger anti-soldier potential if being rolled out on early at mid. On a mid-fight where players cluster up at the beginning of the mid due to the rollout, like a Metalworks or Gully Wash, the Quickies deal so much damage so much faster than stock stickies that those initial few shots can outright win the mid entirely. Very frequently in a Quickies versus Stickies mid-fight, the fight boils down to the Quickies team trying to win early off the damage, and the Stickies team has two very predictable windows for counterplay. Either super early before the demoman has the chance to shoot 4 Quickies, or just early after the demo has shot 4 Quickies. This removes slower strategic play where a team tries to force their opponents into making a mistake and instead turns a mid-fight into which team can win the most 1v1s. On top of that, the ability of this weapon to clear opposing stickies completely nullifies the defensive role of the opposing demoman. This creates a dynamic where the opposing demo swaps to Quickies to avoid the hassle of just getting his stickies deleted, furthering a gameplay loop where teams feel pressured to rush every fight so that their demo isn't stuck with 0 stickies loaded. That all being said about why the Quickies are banned, I will happily shed some further light about the debate surrounding the Quickies and why they aren't banned in North America or Australia yet. There's a point to be made where playing against a demoman with Quickies means that their ability to hold the doors is significantly hindered, allowing for dry pushes or really any off-timing push to be taken much easier. Not only are dry fights easier against Quickies, but any fight that takes a while to develop has the ability to backfire on a demo with Quickies since they don't have the sustained pressure that having 8 stickies loaded provides. On the topic of the sustained pressure that 8 stickies provide for a mid-fight in particular, there's always some kind of fast rollout that a roaming soldier can do onto a demoman to pressure them, trading their health to force the demoman to defend themselves instead of shooting the roamer's team, maybe killing the demo in the process, but maybe not since Quickies are so good for self-defense. Since a Quickies demo only has 4 stickies, this early strategy gives the rest of the roamer's team a fighting chance for fast counterplay since the demoman isn't able to put out that oppressive early damage. There's another counter-argument that goes along the lines of top teams are already taking dry fights or at least pressuring off of pretty much any advantage, so a demoman with Quickies doesn't realistically add to that motivation, especially considering a demoman who isn't prepared with regular stickies is chief among reasons to take a dry fight. If a demoman isn't going to be ready with 8 stickies, the demo with 4 stickies also won't be ready. With the same logic, the Quickies don't negatively impact a demo with lots of time to set up, since they have time to reload and place the remaining 4 stickies for a trap, and then get in position for a proper hold. The Quickies have been banned in Europe for a couple of years now, but with the lock being freshly banned, the North America invite player base believes that the Quickies are firmly in side grade territory, since the playstyle that the lock and Quickies together encourages is no longer possible. It should go without saying that slow and stun effects in any game are boring and overly punishing with very little input from the user, let alone in a game like TF2 where a significant portion of skill comes from movement and positioning. Being able to completely ruin this simply by equipping the Natasha makes for abundantly punishing gameplay, again at no risk to the heavy. It's pretty well understood in casual TF2 circles that Heavy's class design isn't really meant to be chasing down and killing things, just to eat a ton of damage and buy some time and space for his teammates. The decreased firing speed and longer rev-up time are therefore negligible when understanding Heavy's role on the team. In 99% of situations, the Heavy will already be revved up, and other players on the team will be handling the objective for the most part. Giving Heavy damage resistance and slowing enemy players goes hand in hand for giving the class even more defensive impact when it is not remotely needed. Taking into account the reduced overheal you can give a Heavy wearing the Fists of Steel, 390 HP with damage resistance is an enormous energy sink. If you say, okay, don't shoot the Heavy, he will keep mowing you down with his minigun. If you decide, okay, then shoot him, now he switches to his fists and tanks all the damage, and squeaks his way into spawn. It is a horrible strategy to not deal a single point of damage to a heavy over the course of a fight, and potentially an even worse strategy to deal a bunch of damage to him and then purposefully ignore him and let him get arrow tanked to keep shooting at you, or even swap off to something like Scout to clean up as the fight is coming to a close. Fighting against a heavy in this scenario highlights the otherwise irrelevant ammo advantage, since if you pump a ton of shots into a heavy and not even get the kill, you now have no ammo to kill the rest of the team that is potentially fully loaded shooting at you. The Fists of Steel turn the most unkillable class into a beast that is even more unkillable, the true pinnacle of making opponents waste their ammo. Don't get me started on the long-range pickup ability of the Rescue Ranger. On every single Uber push into a sentry, the #1 goal of the Uber is to kill the gun as quickly as possible, that way you can use the rest of the Uber to kill opponents, take space, and play the objective. Having the option, and I will stress that it is an option, not something the engineer has to do every time, to lift the gun out of danger and put it on the other side of the map is utterly busted. It literally doesn't matter if the gun gets killed immediately after being placed down on the opposite side of last. The fact that the Uber has to cross the point to get to and kill the gun wastes enough time that the rest of the Uber cannot remotely be used effectively. If you use an Uber into the opposite side of a sentry gun, your success rate of your push will plummet. Being able to heal a sentry at range removes the potential for the engineer to take damage alongside his sentry gun. Spamming beside a gun to remove the engineer from it is a common tactic, so removing that risk alone is huge. If an engineer is not next to a sentry gun, then he can't heal it at a sustained rate, right? So he'll run out of ammo from spamming his rescue ranger, and then his gun can be killed, right? Nah. And engineer's team isn't just gonna let you spam his gun. As soon as you peek a door to spam it, they're gonna stop you from doing so. Any amount of heals an Engie can give his gun with the Rescue Ranger is effectively the same as if he was swinging his wrench at it. And think about it this way. The Engie doesn't need to unload his Rescue Ranger clip into the sentry. Just one bolt and the rest with the wrench is plenty to keep the sentry up with less risk to the engineer while the rest of the team prevents the attackers from destroying it. The short circuit is another weapon that does not need to be spammed to create an unreasonable amount of value. Again, the engineer's team won't just allow the gun to be spammed, so one short circuit shot that can delete 2 enemy rockets completely shuts down the ability to spam the gun. It won't just be 2 enemy rockets though, since teams have to double spam the gun in order to take it out without the engineer solo tanking the damage with his wrench. If timed right, one alt fire can delete 3 rockets from a soldier, potentially 6 rockets from 2 soldiers, buying plenty of time for the engineer's teammates to provide the appropriate support. Standing outside of a sentry's range to spam it is always the way it's done. With the Wrangler, being able to not only triple the gun's effective health, but also shoot the players who would normally be at a safe distance from the gun is utterly busted. The only thing you can really do to counter this consistently would be a spy sapping the gun, but as soon as you know a spy is on the field, which can easily be inferred by the fact that the only thing that you can do to disable the Wrangled sentry is sap it, they will never get anything of value done. As a huge fan of a sap and sack play, I can tell you firsthand that it's only going to work when it's actually a surprise. All 3 of these engineer weapons indisputably make pushing a point nearly impossible. As such, they are rightfully banned from all leagues. The cut and dry reason the quick fix is banned comes down to the explosive jump sharing between the medic and the heal target. Being able to jump your medic out of danger is even more egregious than the disciplinary action. In a sack scenario, the obvious solution is to try and kill anyone who isn't the medic who's going to get explosive jumped away. In fact, this is already a common tactic at a high level, even with the quick fix banned. But way more importantly, in punishing, chasing scenarios where you are killing a medic late in the fight, being able to rocket jump or sticky jump away makes that medic unkillable. It should be noted too that a major point for coordination in Sixes is Ubering a demo through a doorway and he sticky jumps forward to prevent enemies from escaping, and a medic with scout speed chase down the demo in order to save him with the rest of the Uber. With a quick fix, not only can the medic join the demo for the ride, but keep the demo and himself overhealed via the mega heal Uber charge of the quick fix. Unkillable demoman flying into your team, unkillable medic tanking him. On top of all of that, the quick fix's increased healing rate would undoubtedly make it a post-Uber menace. It is very rare during a team fight for players to be fully overhealed, so the quick fix only being able to get a scout up to a max 153 HP actually isn't the end of the world anyways, since that scout was never going to be 185 for very long. When you add the burst healing of arrows on top of that, the quick fix would absolutely dominate in post-Ubers and dry fights. Something like the Kritzkrieg would not be an effective counter because it requires that the team with crits be proactive about using it. And similar to a spy becoming useless once you know the enemy has one, once you know your opponent is on Kritzkrieg, they become insanely one-dimensional and easy to play around. Again, not to mention the ability to jump your medic away from any high damage crit projectiles with ease. When the Vaccinator was unbanned during the inception of the global whitelist around 2016 or so, it became the go-to for a huge disadvantage last holds. Being able to build a shield with only 25% Uber is so insanely busted, and even just 2 seconds of 90% damage resistance can completely stifle the opponent's post-Uber. A very common example in current gameplay where the Vaccinator would excel, and stop me if you've heard this before, is trying to kill a heavy after an Uber has faded when pushing last. What happens is the team groups up, the soldiers and demos shoot the heavy, while the scouts try to cap the point or clean up on damage. Popping an explosive bubble on a 450 HP heavy would lead to him taking like 100 damage from all of the explosives. Unscripted, I'm off the script. All of the explosives, 100 damage. And then he could utterly mow down everything in his sight. You can't play the situation slow in corner cap due to the pressure the heavy exerts on the point if you try to sneak the cap, and because the enemy team will eventually get their own Uber, or in this case additional Vaccinator bubbles, or respawning players to push you out of last. You could pop bullet resist to tank damage from 2 scouts shooting at you, and then you could defend the point like that. The argument remains the same no matter what combination of damage you use to shoot the heavy, or any player with the bubble on them. The Vaccinator bubble increases the investment to kill an enemy player who is blocking the objective tenfold for a given damage type, and probably double for a whole team effort. I can't possibly sugarcoat it, the Vaccinator is rightfully banned. The damage boost is the only thing about the Machina that matters in the slightest, and it boils down to being able to body shot kill light classes who have just been buffed moments ago. No scout player will always be 185 HP, so the ability to body shot a scout for 173 only 3 seconds after they've been buffed makes the most busted class in the game even more powerful. The damage boost effectively raises the skill floor of the class. When normally there would be a big sniper gap between, say, myself and bot mode, the 173 damage body shot would allow me to have a similar impact to bot mode, as I could be killing scouts with body shots with the Machina in adjacent situations where he would have to headshot them with a stock rifle. Addressing other listed downsides of the Machina, you can effectively no-scope by just going for a body shot immediately after scoping, and the tracer is meaningless because even with the default rifle, the shot sound effect is very distinct and gives away the sniper's positioning. Once that first shot is taken, all eyes are on the sniper, regardless of if there's a bright laser beam tracer around. To reiterate, the Machina is banned because it raises the skill floor of sniper. Any player who is playing sniper should be hitting precise, difficult headshots in order to pick off overheal targets, and the ability of the Machina to more consistently generate kills on the light classes gives worse players a similar impact to better players. For the last time in this video, I will combine 2 weapons into one with the Sydney Sleeper and Girardi, and I'll first start with the Girardi. The Girardi can just be thrown into the middle of a fight and have insane impact. If you're an attacking sniper and you get a kill to trigger the team fight, once the Ubers are finished, let's say, you would throw the Girardi into the fray and give your team a crazy damage advantage. Maybe even think about a last hold where the investment of playing sniper is negligible due to the spawn door being right there. You can force an Uber simply by being on sniper, and get the opportunity to throw Girardi as well. The Jar that you throw doesn't even need to hit multiple players. Even intentionally throwing at one isolated flank player would prevent them from having any impact in the fight. In the defending example, the risk of this play is tiny since you will always be safe in a spawn door if need be, but has an insane payout when the Girardi connects. In the attacking example, there is stronger incentive to, and stop me if you've heard this before, play sniper and slow the game down because of the impact that the Girardi would have when the team fight happens. It doesn't matter if both teams are running the same strategy on a mid to second point hold, let's say. They are incentivized to play the game as slow as possible with their sniper for the payout that the Girardi would provide. Now on the Sydney Sleeper, since I've already talked about the Machina and the Girardi, I'm sure you can put the pieces together on why this weapon is banned too. The sniper not only charges his shot 25% faster with the Sleeper, but also applies Girardi to that player on hit, with the duration scaling with time spent charging. The Sydney Sleeper, like the Machina, raises the skill floor of the class by allowing the sniper to settle for body shots for equal or greater impact than a headshot. Probably more impact than the Machina in this case, since a 0% charge 50 damage body shot still applies Girardi for 2 seconds, which is plenty of time for a team with even just okay coordination to take advantage of. The Girardi and Sydney Sleeper as separate entities are both rightfully banned. The Diamondback is banned because a spy getting a backstab is trivial. Rewarding this trivial feat with a free 102 damage revolver shot is way too powerful of a reward. Most top players already understand that the stock revolver is already super strong. Taking this further with Diamondback crits is simply too much. Concluding with the 2 banned multiclass items, let's start with the base jumper. The base jumper is definitely a troll weapon if you're running it on demo, but one of the best tools in the soldier's arsenal is the ability to rocket jump super high in the air and decide whether or not he'd like to land on his opponents or airstrafe to safety if he thinks he won't get much value with his bomb. Alternatively, the soldier can commit with the bomb knowing that he will die, but the fact that people are focusing him instead of his team means that the bomb is still successful. To be able to stall out in the air and just sort of float around increases this window for the soldier to land on their opponents, while also being a major distraction since that soldier landing on you is an enormous threat that needs to be tracked. The decreased air strafing hardly matters when you're so high off the ground that nobody can deal much damage to you in the first place, and since you're so far away from your opponents, you have tons of time to avoid air shots. The floating target makes you easy to hit for scouts, but being easy to hit doesn't mean easy to kill, as each shot doing 12 damage is just a giant waste of ammo. Being so high in the air that you can avoid damage entirely offsets the lost gunboat's value of decreasing damage from your rocket jumps. To put it succinctly, the base jumper allows the soldier to combine the power of landing on opponents with a rocket jump with the power of strafing to safety to commit on his opponents later. The reserve shooter acts as a foil of sorts to the gunboats. In the intro, I discussed the merits of the gunboats as a direct upgrade to the shotgun due to the increased mobility it provides soldier and how the consequences of that mobility directly result in making TF2 a better game. The reserve shooter is the opposite and is just straight up unfun to play against. Mini crits on players who are performing rocket jumps, an action that has been established that more of equals a better game, just discourages the action, slowing down individual fights due to the presence of a reserve shooter. I'd like to also connect this to the idea of weapons not needing to kill people to be effective. Because the reserve shooter does mini crits, it does more damage at a range. Since more damage is more knockback, a player running reserve shooter doesn't really need to commit to killing someone in order to make use of the bonus damage, as shotgun denying just for the sake of shotgun denying becomes way more powerful.